Good afternoon and welcome to the CleanTech Lithium PLC investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged. They can be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab situated in the right corner of your screen. Just simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company can review the questions submitted today and publish responses where it is appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I'd like to submit the following poll. And I'd now like to hand you over to Daniel Fox-Davies. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon. Steve, you're looking very dapper, sir. I'm feeling somewhat underdressed. I feel I should have got a tie and a jacket on.
It's LME week in London, and we've had meetings.
Okay. You see, you shouldn't tell the audience that. You should have told the audience that it was just, for prepping up for them. Right, sir. Well, it's been a while, and obviously we had a fairly momentous or somewhat fabulous news coming out on Friday, a little bit delayed from the government. So we thought it'd be very useful just provide an update for existing shareholders and for new interested parties to take a little step back and just explain exactly what the announcement means overall for Chile and the lithium industry, what it means specifically for CleanTech. And maybe, Steve, if I could invite you to maybe take a step back and explain the differences between having the mineral licenses or the mineral rights over a project and the sale application and what that will actually give to the company.
Okay, well, the mining licenses, both exploration and exploitation, gives a company the right to explore and exploit all minerals except for lithium. Now, lithium is regarded as a strategic mineral by the state of lithium, and it can only be exploited by the state, which it does by giving either concession agreements or special operating contracts, which are known as sales. And to be able to develop and sell lithium, you need a sale and operating contract. And this is where we had the news last week, which has been very, very positive. I think the whole market has been waiting for Chile to announce what it wants to do with its lithium industry. It announced a lithium strategy, national lithium strategy last year, which was misrepresented by a lot of the press as saying the lithium, the state of Chile wants to control all lithium production, which is far from the truth. There are some salars it wants to develop itself with majority control. That's the Atacama and Maricunga. The other state mining company has got projects which it wants to develop with the private sector. And then the government said there are 26 other salars in Chile, which is open to the private sector to develop on their own. They can invite in state participant if they want, but the government's very happy that they go alone. And that includes all of CleanTech Lithium's projects. And then there has been further clarity, which was announced on Friday, of what is the process which the government intends to allocate these special operating contracts. And it's going in a number of ways. And first, you've got to understand that Chile has always been, for decades, a lithium-producing country. It was the largest lithium producer in the world. It's been overtaken by Australia. But this government is really determined to get production up. It wants to be a world leader again. It wants to lead the charge in this sort of energy transition period we're going through now. And it's reliant on the private sector to come in and bring the technology and the financing to advance this. And what it announced on Friday is saying, look, they've looked at all of these private sector and potential projects, the 26, and they are going to prioritize 6 of them, which have fundamental advantages, which should allow them to be developed as rapidly as possible, because the government wants to see new production in 2026, or at least projects actively in development by 2026. And out of the 6 it identified, it included our flagship Laguna Verde project. And it's interesting comparing the other 5, they're both in early stage exploration, or no exploration has been done. And it's very clear that the Laguna Verde, now prioritized by the government, is the most advanced private sector lithium project in Chile. The government then further went on and said, look, it is duty bound as the government to put out these projects to a public tendering process. And what they mean by public tender is not bidding the most amount of money. It is saying who is the most qualified to develop these projects. So that is the way it is normally done, and they intend to go. But they've made provision for fast tracking to streamline the process. If a company can demonstrate it meets a number of criterion. And what the government has said is that the applications for the sales need to go in by the end of December this year, and we've already drafted those applications last year. Obviously, we will update them. And then the government said, look, if the company can demonstrate three things: one, it's an active participant in the lithium industry, and we can demonstrate we're an explorer and developer. We've done lots of work in Chile, produced a lot of results out into the public market. Two, does it have the financial capacity to develop the project? And we've demonstrated it in our previous RFIs with the potential to bring in strategic partners, the potential to get multilateral finance. I think we've given examples of KfW's offer of finance for the project. We've got support from Regal funds in Australia. So clearly we'll be demonstrating, particularly with our intent to bring in a strategic partner that will have the financial capacity to develop the project. And the third, and probably the most important, the government has said, if the company can demonstrate it has 80% of the mining licenses in the sale area, then it will not go to public tender, but we can go directly into discussion and negotiation on the terms of the sale with the government. And we've been able to demonstrate that we have a very dominant license position. We have mining licenses covering over 80% of the sale area, which has now been defined by government yesterday. So we are in a very, very strong position with our submission at the end of December to then go into not a tendering process, but going into a direct discussion with government on the terms of the sale. The government has said if they go into a direct discussion, then they would expect to be signing the sale in the first quarter of next year. So that's the process, and we are very, very, very well set up to go into that direct discussion, not going through any tender process. Then the second area which the government has said is absolutely vital for the development, for the award of a sale, is to demonstrate that the developer has the support from the affected communities for the development of the project. And what the government is going to do, it will call in a process of all potential affected indigenous communities and engage with them on the project, inform on the project, hear any concerns, and see whether there is support or not. In our case, we've talked a lot in previous presentations that we started this process of dialogue with the indigenous communities more than 2 years ago. And we did this to ensure that they understood what the project is all about, our intent to use direct lithium extraction with reinjection of the brine so that there's no impact on the water resource in the aquifer, the benefits of DLE with a very small surface footprint and being much more efficient. And the communities, which don't live within 100 kilometers of the project, but they are on the transport corridors, and they do have a historic feeling for the land area, have been extremely supportive. We've signed an alliance agreement, with them at the end of last year, that they will join with us, on the development of the EIA for the Laguna Verde project. They're going to be a participant in the EIA. We had a very interesting inauguration of our pilot plant in Copiapó about a month or two ago. And it's very interesting that the president of the indigenous communities in that area stood up and addressed the presidential delegate and said, look, we all know that Chile wants to expand its lithium production. And we all know that every new project has an environmental impact. But from what they've seen in their discussions, what they've seen in the DLE process from CleanTech Lithium and the way that we intend to develop Laguna Verde, it is the method which has the minimum environmental impact on the area. And they are totally supportive of CleanTech Lithium getting the sale at the earliest opportunity and leading the development of the lithium industry in the Atacama. And that's important because there was a survey that was produced by the Chilean government last week, which demonstrated that the Atacama is lagging in terms of GDP growth, employment opportunities. So the local communities, the government of the Atacama region is very keen to see lithium production as soon as possible, and we intend to lead that way.
Sorry. What do you think would sort of what can investors and shareholders expect? What's the sort of agreement that you would expect is likely in a sale? What would be the sort of the negotiating points that the government would be looking for? Obviously, this is extremely good news for us. It's most likely fast tracks us through, but what are the things that they think the government would be looking for and would usually come out of this sort of negotiation like this?
Well, there's history there, because the only company that's been awarded a sale to date is the state company Codelco in the Salar de Maricunga, and we have the terms of that sale. And the concession agreements which SQM and Albemarle have in the Salar de Atacama, and we have those. So our expectation is that there will be a front end, a small royalty. I think it's about 1.5% on revenue, which goes into an R&D fund to promote the knowledge of lithium and the technology and the development of technology of lithium. Then there is a royalty on operating margin, depending on the lithium price and the increase in operating profits of the company. The royalty will ratchet from a minimum of 6% to a maximum of 16% royalty. And both the first royalty and the operating margin royalty are considered operating costs. And then there is normal corporate taxation in Chile, which is 27%. So the overall take of government from the project, we estimated about 45%. And furthermore, what we've done as a company is volunteered, and we've done it publicly and to the indigenous communities, is that we will volunteer a 1.5% royalty to go into a trust fund for the indigenous communities to be used for educational, health, and welfare and social projects, to be managed by trustees with the indigenous communities. And that's why they're also being very, very supportive. They're saying, look, lithium, what is lithium going to do for us? It's going to do a lot. It will allow the communities to get some income to help improve the lifestyle and protect the cultural heritage of the indigenous people in the group. So we expect in the discussions with government, they will present a model. We think it'll be very similar to what I've just described. The government has said that if there is agreement on that model, and there is support from the indigenous communities, and we see very, very strong support from our communities, then the government will draft the decree, get it signed, and then the company is up and running and can start to develop the project. So we'll be in the stage of wanting to go at that stage, into the DFS, into the development of the project. The other 5, which have been classified as priority projects, they will only be at the start of exploration. Now, we are much more advanced than any other project in Chile. So I think this is a very exciting time in the next quarter, to demonstrate that we will go into this streamlined process and get up and running very, very fast. And so whilst I've been here in LME Week, we had a very interesting session yesterday in the Chilean embassy, which was a seminar on mining in Chile. And the keynote speaker was the mining minister, Aurora Williams. And she spoke to the audience, a very big audience. And she said, look, now Chile is a mining country. It's a major part of the economy of Chile. It's a big job generator in Chile. And Chile's gone through a number of mining cycles. The mining industry in Chile started originally with the development of the saltpeter and nitrate projects back in the early part of the last century. Then the next big drive in recent decades has been the growth of the copper production, copper industry of Chile, where it's now the largest in the world. And she said the next stage in the development of Chile is going to be the development of the lithium industry, because Chile wants to play its part in the transition to the green economy and being the largest lithium producer in the world. And you're saying, but we have problems there. No, we have been producing lithium for decades in the Salar de Atacama using evaporation ponds, but these are problematic because it's a desert. No, water is scarce, and to evaporate this water is not a good way of going about business. And if you pump the brine and evaporate, it takes 18 months to get production. There's a better way of doing it. And so what the government wants to see is private companies coming into Chile, bringing the technology which is much more efficient. And here, this is where we're leading the charge with introducing DLE into the country, because we are giving what Aurora Williams saying the country wants. Now, we can produce by pumping the brine, extracting the lithium onto adsorbent and re-injection the brine. We don't waste water from the aquifer. We can be producing in 1 to 2 days from pumping brine, not the 18 months, which is of concern to Aurora Williams. And we're looking at an efficiency, a recovery of lithium from that aquifer, from that brine of 88%, not the 40 to 45% of the traditional evaporation ponds. And we can do it and be at the bottom end of the cost curve, the lowest quartile of costs, to be very competitive to all the other hard rock projects in Australia and Africa. So what we're doing is meeting what the government wants to see as new technology coming into the country.
So, Steve, what's the reality? If we get our application in, we did the bulk of the work for it, update, but if you got it in at the end of October, do we have to wait till the very end of the year to engage with the government, or is there a chance that we might be able to engage earlier?
No, I think they've given the timeline of end of December to have that in. There is a process that the government is going to lead the dialogue with the communities, and there's an official process. They have to lodge notification to those communities. They have to give the communities time to prepare. And in the session with Aurora Williams yesterday, she said they will be ready to start that engagement with the communities at the end of October. They've allowed quite a few months. They previously said 6 to 8 months, where there's a project starting from scratch. We believe that because there's already been extensive dialogue with our communities, that will be very much truncated. But I think what the government is looking for is getting the applications which demonstrate we meet the criteria to go into direct discussion with government, in parallel with them getting comfort from the communities that they will support the development of Laguna Verde by CleanTech Lithium. So I think we really are looking end of this year, ready for discussions on the model and signing of the sale in the first quarter of next year. And that's important,
Okay.
not just for the development of our project, but we've been in discussion with many potential strategic partners, and they like the project, they like Chile, but they've all been nervous about what's the process of the sale. And now there's a clear track to getting the award of the sale. I think we will be able to be very much in discussion with potential strategic partners to bring them in earlier in the process, rather than later, because that's really been the concern of most. What's going to happen with sales? Now, are the government going to give you a sale? And clearly, we're going to be on a fast track to a sale, and we'll be able to start that discussion. To bring in a strategic partner, who does have strong financial capacity.
Excellent. Well, that's very good, and it takes away some of the concern about actually just getting clarity. And certainly the one around the 80% is extremely positive for us for ensuring that we proceed through that route. I'll touch base a little bit on the ASX towards the end, but we did go to a couple of some slides. You also want to touch base, Steve, on a little bit about where the market's been. We could touch base a little bit about Qatar, what CATL did on the domestic production, and some of the outlook of where we're looking for prices and demand over the next sort of 6-12 months.
Yeah, we've clearly seen the softening of the lithium price over the course of the last year, and really that's been because of the slower take up of electric vehicles in the United States and the EU. The electrification of vehicles in China is been going gung ho. They've been having very rapid growth rates there, but slower in other parts of the world. And meanwhile, there's been increase in production from hard rock mines in Australia, and increasingly from Africa, which has overtaken the growth in demand. So there's been a bit of a surplus, but that's going to go. The world is going down the road of electrification of vehicles. Every motor manufacturer in the West now recognizes that. But knows that the price of the cars which they're offering into the market are still too expensive, and what they need to do is to reduce the price, and they're working at it. They are now lowering the price of cars. They're re-looking at the batteries rather than going for the NMC battery, high power batteries. They're looking at the LFP, and they're good batteries but lower power for the city cars, and that will lead to a drop in price and an increased take up by the mass market. The expectation is that the surplus will work its way out in a couple of years. So by the time that we're looking to coming into production 2027, that we should get the price back up. Because the reality is, at today's price, nobody is going to be developing new projects. And the world will need every new project it can get to meet the projected demand over the next 10, 20 years. Most analysts, I've explained before, are saying that to incentivize new production, to get the bank finance for those projects, you need to be at about $20,000 a ton or more to incentivize new projects. So what we've been seeing happening with the price at this sort of 10,000 level, production is coming out of the market. You're seeing some companies stopping production in Australia. Like the core, they're talking about Mount Marion, they're stopping production. Quite a number of the potential expansions have been put on hold there. We then had the announcement last week from CATL in China that 2 of the lepidolite mines, those are the higher cost mines in China, were shut down. That had an immediate impact on share price of producing companies in Australia, and overnight share prices jumped 10 to 15%. So there's a general feeling that we're bumping along the bottom in terms of price, that the market will be recovering in the EU and the United States as cheaper cars become available. Asia is still going gung ho on electrification of vehicles, and that the price will be recovering over the course of the next few years and get back to a long-term sustainable price, which Canaccord says about $22,500 a ton. Nobody wants to see the price go back to $80,000 a ton. That's just a crazy number. That was just a very short, large deficit in material. At that price, the batteries are too expensive. Once you start to get to a stable long-term price of the 22,000, and you're producing the LFP battery, which needs lithium carbonate, which we're going to produce, that's good for the car manufacturers. They get cheaper batteries, they can sell cheaper cars, and then the world will progress with the electrification. So that's where we are in the market. I think we had a slide just back there, which is what we're doing with the conversion process in Chicago. Everybody's been waiting for us to make large quantities of battery grade material. So we ran the DLE plant in Copiapó very successfully, made very good quality clean eluate. It's all been shipped to Chicago. It's all received and waiting in Chicago. We sent samples to Conductive Energy to set up their plant there, and they produce battery grade lithium carbonate, 99.75%. One thing we're doing differently there is we're working with a company called Forward Water Technology, and they are going to be using the process called forward osmosis. As we've talked, we concentrate the eluate in Chile to about 2,000 ppm using reverse osmosis, and then the normal way of concentrating it further to about 20,000 ppm is to use mechanical evaporation, which is pretty energy intensive. Forward Water have demonstrated over the years that their process of forward osmosis uses much less energy and is much more efficient in terms of concentrating the 2,000 ppm that we have to the 20,000 or even up to 50,000 ppm lithium before we remove the final traces of impurities and precipitate the lithium carbonate. There was a bit of a delay in setting up all of this equipment, but it's all now been commissioned. It's in Chicago, and we've got the material there. So during the course of October, we'll be running the material, the eluate, through the plant and producing battery-grade lithium carbonate. And that's good because with the situation with the sale being clarified and having large samples of the battery-grade material, to be able to provide to potential strategics and off-takers to start their product qualification process, we'll be in very good shape to also start the discussion about strategics entering the company and assisting with the finance as we go forward into the next stage of DFS and EIA and to final investment decision, as well as the construction finance into the future.
Very good. Let's go to a couple of questions now. I think that covered off. I thought these were passing out and turned out, but obviously some numbers there on the concentration. Let's go to some of the Q&A if we may. So responding back to Toby, yeah, we can reasonably expect, Toby, obviously to be honest, everybody, the process of taking a Jersey company and Jersey's Companies Acts and Rules with a London listing onto the ASX is tortuous, and you go at their pace rather than our pace. So it's a administrative issue that's come up, which is being then just handled. I think will be resolved over the next sort of 10 to 14 days. Realistically, I expect to get back out to Australia at the end of October. We may have to update some of parts to the prospectus, just to disclosures, etc. Basically, there's questions around just further disclosure on direct lithium and also on the sales, etc., etc. but I'm very confident that we'd actually get this done by year end, and it's my primary focus to get that done by year end. We'll come on to the CEO. There's one also here for TG there. Well, let's go through there for Richard. So, Steve, we have, in terms of funding for the full plant, I know the debt makes up the majority. Will this debt all sit with CTL or some be in project financing? And we discussed this at one of our previous seminars.
No, we don't intend to bring the debt into CTL. It's all project financing. So that's where we intend to bring the strategic, into the project level. We're looking for them to provide some of the financing of their own balance sheet, and to mobilize their relationship banks, their commercial banks, to come and support the project. We've had discussions with some of the multilateral banks like KfW, Jexim potentially there, and others, to put debt in at the project company. And they do this because it's the project that provides offtake to the customer, and the import credit finance is provided against that contract. So this debt is going in at the project level.
Okay, a couple of ask around short-term funding. Let me head that up because people ask it in different ways. Obviously, we are still operating on the ground. We'll need to get onto the ASX, before year end to continue on the programs at the same level. But in terms of board's concerns, we have some very large, very committed shareholders who've written some very significant checks, who've committed to supporting on the ASX. And if for any reason we couldn't go on the ASX, then they've committed to support the company going forward. So there are numerous opportunities in terms of funding the company going forward. I got past another one actually just this morning by Gordon. So there's a number of proposals constantly coming in about either wanting to partner or to provide some sort of debt. Some of the debt at the moment I think is a bit expensive because we're still an exploration company. And there are also offers of people wanting to come in on a strategic basis. But if we take a step back, the reason for going onto the ASX was originally driven by Regal Funds, who is the company's largest shareholder. They subscribed for 10% of the pre-IPO, then 10% on the IPO because they didn't want to be over 10% in the lockup. But then they stepped up to just over 15% at the third round and held their corner. And then a year and a bit or so ago, they said, gentlemen, look, we really like the project and we're very keen to keep funding the company all the way through to production. And even then, when you get the project finance, there will be a slug of equity, and we'd be very interested in having a discussion to provide that slug of equity. But we have a limit to how much we can hold in non-Australian listed companies because we're an Australian fund. So that was one reason for starting the process. And then the other one is, as our largest shareholder, they brought to the company's attention the fact that there are about 36 lithium companies listed on the ASX, with a universe of about 86 analysts covering them, and a very deep and broad pool of institutional and retail investors. And when you look at the back of the envelope numbers, I mean, it is fairly simplistic, but at this stage, it's all we can really do. In terms of resource to market cap, we're trading at about 30% of the average of the peer group of the other lithium exploration companies on the ASX. And I very much feel that we're very much above average compared. And that's really the response we got from a lot of the funds and brokers we saw there. So that was the process, the reasons for doing it. And I'm very much committed that we'll get on before year end. So there's about 3 or 4 different funny ones there. But the other question, Steve, we had is an update on CEO, a new CEO.
Yes, we have gone through the recruitment process. We have selected a CEO. We have gone into the contractual discussions, which we are there with him at the moment, and then we'll hope to make an announcement very, very soon.
Okay, well, we will look forward to that. I've got one other one here from Ian G asking if possibly that the DLE technology can be sold. Do you just want to clarify on that? So you're asking whether it could be sold to the Chilean government?
We don't have our own technology deliberately. No, we want to be a player of the best technology that's available in the market. So we use process equipment, from third-party suppliers. We use the adsorbent from whoever makes the best. Currently, in our pilot plant, we use that from Lanshen. If other people will produce a better adsorbent in the future, we will use that too. So we have nothing to sell to the government. What we have to sell to the government is our ability to get a project up and running and delivering royalties to the government and jobs and everything else. So that's what we will give to government. We are not a technology development company. We are a technology using company.
Okay, I'd hoped we were going to be under half an hour. We've dragged on, but the main point of this was just to give an update and explanation of the sales. So hopefully we will get announcements fairly soon about the overdue lithium carbonate. We're aware it's overdue. We're all very keen to get that going. We'll have announcements coming up about the CEO. On the Australian side, we actually got a really good response. We had a number of key Australian institutions who really liked the project. They particularly actually like, I can say this a third party, but they were very impressed by Steve. They were impressed by Tommy. Tommy's actually extremely well known in the Australian sector. There was a lot of discussion around DLE and DLE technology. There was a lot of recognition about the benefits of being in Chile versus other Latin American countries. And we were well through the book on the way. The delay is process, it's administrative. I think I mentioned that one as an example. I'm not sure, but the prospectus does things like it states that DLE technology is being more widely adopted outside China. But we had a request back to give fuller details about where it's being used outside. There's a line in the prospectus that mentions that Chile has one of the highest levels of renewable energy in the national grid. We were asked for sort of lots of data on that. So it's a cumbersome process. In many ways, I'm finding the ASX slightly more difficult than London, but I suppose they're just doing what they're required to do. But I very much hope that the paperwork side will get sorted out in the next sort of 14 or so days, and then we can push back ahead there. And I'm very much hopeful that actually at that time, one of the concerns, though, to be honest, in the marketing was a question mark over the sales and the application. So in some ways, the delay actually, I think, is beneficial because that now gives clarity. And then hopefully we can get the first product going ahead of getting back to Australia. And I think that will also help. There's a couple of other ones that have just popped up here. I know, well, actually, I'd answered that one. We have, a number of key supportive shareholders. Ian says, thank you. Can the company speak, Steve, to the other project sites, Atacama and Yamara?
Yes, what the government has said is it's reviewed all the applications. As I said, they had 88 applications across the 26 salars, of which there were 16 of them. And what they've done is to prioritize the 6 which they think have the best fundamentals to go forward as rapidly as possible. That's Laguna Verde being, I think, the leading one in that group. And they've then said is by the end of this year, there will be a further announcement on the other salars and how they intend to take those forward. So it's just been a prioritization first of the 6 with Laguna Verde, and we'll get news on the others by the end of this year.
Okay, and Steve, last we're going to wrap up to a degree. Only I'm afraid I do have a call in 5 minutes. The PFS, obviously, we're still working away on the ground. We're still on targeting for a year end for the PFS.
Well, we're working on that. No, clearly, say with the ASX listing process, we were looking at getting the funding from that with the capital raise to take us all the way through to the completion. So we're really looking forward to getting that ASX listing up and running again. We continue to work on the PFS, on all the engineering work, the work on the conversion process to get the carbonate, working on the resources and then the reserves. So we'll finish as early as we can.
So everybody, can you still hear me? I got a message saying there's a problem with my microphone, but
No, can hear you clearly.
Great, fabulous. Thank you very much. Well, everybody, thank you very much for joining. So we are working furiously away in the background, both on the ground, and I know that Gordon and Dermot and Nick and the team are working on sorting out this process. So we will hopefully pick on with that over the next sort of couple of weeks and give an update. And then as soon as we make an announcement about the appointment of the new CEO, we will host a meet the company session then to introduce the new CEO once he gets his feet under the desk. But Steve, anything else you wanted to add to today?
Well, no, just to summarize, I think we are now in a very, very good position. The sale has been clarified. It's clear that we can get fast-tracked onto getting that signed early next year. We will have, during the course of October, demonstrated we've got large quantities of battery-grade lithium carbonate, and we're in a very good position to start the engagement with potential strategic investors into the company. So a very good position to be in.
Steve, as always, thank you very much for your time. I'll pass back to the investor meet companies, guys.
Perfect. Thank you both for updating investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as you'll now be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of CleanTech Lithium PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation, and good afternoon to you all.